As we all know, children, unfortunately, are not the only ones who are bullied. It's happening in thousands of offices and workplaces around the country. In tonight's Fox in Focus, Isaiah Carey is asking the question, are you a victim of corporate bullying?
Schoolyard bullying is what we're used to hearing about. For months, it's been the hot topic in the country.
This particular lady was one who literally put a bit in my mouth and rode me every single day like a rented mule.
But what about corporate bullying? Have you heard of that?
I would get there and it would just be horrible. Like I just walked into a house of horrors.
If by chance you feel that way about going to work, you're not alone. You may be the victim of corporate bullying. Here's a clear definition. An employee is abused by an employer intentionally, knowing that the law is weak and jobs are scarce.
Managers were yelling, acting crazy, trying to belittle me, and just set out to make life difficult.
Corinthia Miller says she was a victim of corporate bullying. She worked for a company where she says the boss rode her like that rented mule you heard about.
When you're an adult and you tell people, they look at you and say, well, wow, you can't figure this out for yourself. You can't say to this person, well, you need to leave me alone. But you can't, because that person controls your paycheck, controls whether or not you come to work the next day, controls everything about your career.
There lies a problem. Experts say that's why most employees don't fight back. They stay and take the abuse, which eventually hurts the company.
We can now link the prevalence of these to earnings. There's actually an ability to build a model that shows what's the impact on your earnings statement.
Craig Clayton is an author and consultant who has researched and studied corporate bullying in 25 countries. He says if employers allow the abuse to go on, they can expect a decline in profitability. Why? Workers are doing only what they need to get through the day instead of thriving.
It's not a case of does it happen. The only real question is how much of it's going on in your company, which is one of the things companies need to determine.
Keep in mind, corporate bullying is different from harassment. Harassment is the process of unethical behavior against individuals that could be based on sex, race, or religion. So what should you do as a victim of bullying at work? Speak up. That's what Corinthia Miller did. She also quit. Miller is now an attorney, her own boss.
I will never, if I can help it, work for anyone else again, because one, I don't want to go back to that environment where someone has enough control and power over me to mistreat me and get away with it.
If you can't afford to quit after facing bullying at the job, go through the chain of command. Talk to your managers. When that doesn't work, Miller suggests outside agencies like the Department of Labor. Clayton believes bullying is an issue that should be addressed by management before it spirals out of control.
This is an issue that has to be something that leaders of the company say, one, why is this happening in our culture? And two, what is it that we can do to stop it?
So ask yourself now, are you a victim? Isaiah Carey, Fox 26 News.
And joining us now is Charles Wilson, a lawyer with the law firm of Epstein, Becker, Green, Wycliffe, and Hall. He specializes in representing companies in labor and employment matters. So, Charles, this bullying thing, it's not just a bunch of whiners talking about corporate bullying. You say it's real.
It definitely is real. In fact, 16 states have tried to pass laws addressing workplace bullying. And almost 2 years ago, a court decided that bullying can be a form of intentional infliction of emotional distress or assault.
Well, that's a big deal because a lot of us were wondering as we were pursuing this story, the difference between bullying and harassment. And you say one leads to the other sometimes.
It definitely can. You know, harassment can be illegal discrimination based on gender and race, but bullying can be a form of harassment.
Mm-hmm. So if someone is wondering, hey, my boss is picking on me, is this corporate bullying? And if so, do I have any recourse? What would you tell them?
Yeah, there can be some recourse in the sense, if in fact the bullying is based on a person's race or gender, if the person perceives they're being singled out by the bullying because of some other protected category, it certainly can be illegal.
And let's define what bullying in the workplace is for all the bosses out there who are watching, who are saying, you know what, suck it up. We've got to motivate you somehow. We've got to point out what you're doing wrong. What makes it bullying?
Bullying can take many forms. It depends on the relationship between the supervisor and employee and what the supervisor knows about the employee to push that employee's buttons. It can be the silent treatment. It can be unwarranted criticism. It can be embarrassing the employee in front of coworkers.
So what's the line when we're talking about corporate bullying between someone being sensitive and their feelings being hurt and a legitimate corporate bullying situation which could then lead to harassment?
Again, if the bullying is perceived to be focused on, let's say, male employees,
right,
rather than female employees, that can be illegal discrimination. But at a minimum, if the perception is that the supervisor is not being professional, that can have ramifications for the employer.
Okay, now in this time of the economy,
right,
jobs are scarce, people are trying to hold on to what they've got,
right,
so they may be a little concerned about going to human resources,
right,
or having something documented if they have a problem with their boss.
Mm-hmm.
What steps should an employee take if they think they are being bullied in the workplace by their boss? Should they start documenting?
Yeah, they should document, and that could be in an email, it can be a cordial discussion via email.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely need to speak up about it. Being silent about it is not going to cure the problem.
But if you're afraid, if you want to hold on to your job,
right,
do you go to human resources or do you speak directly to your supervisor and try to handle it between the two of you?
I think the best thing to do is to go to human resources. They are the individuals that are designated to handle those types of concerns.
And for companies, we have a lot of small business owners here in Houston, a lot of bosses here in Houston.
Right.
What can companies do to protect themselves from these complaints of corporate bullying and harassment?
Well, at a minimum, the employers need to send out a message to their workforce that everyone is going to be treated with respect. They need to reinforce their policies to incorporate workplace bullying, and they need to train their supervisors so that they know, while it's okay to properly motivate and challenge employees, the company won't tolerate unprofessional bullying.
And I know you've had some cases, some labor cases and employment cases. People do sue their employers in these situations. Do they win?
They may not always win, but they definitely scare the companies enough.
All right, Charles Wilson, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank
Mike?
you.